Alain Vaillancourt is head of public security on the executive committee of the City of Montreal. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about this week. Alain, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Elias. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and first things first, let's talk about the big bust. And what a coincidence. Just days after the car theft summit, Quebec Provincial Police and specialized teams seized 53 stolen vehicles from the Port of Montreal. I guess it's just, about 12,000 others to go here. Alain, talk to me about this bust, and is this a result of any type of movement we've seen from Ottawa, especially over the last week?
Well, car theft, as you said, is a big problem. You know, out of 15,000 cars in Quebec, 12,000 are stolen in Montreal, so it's a serious problem. The bust that you're talking about in the old port, that's something that obviously, wasn't done in a day. They've been working on that. That's a new team that the SQ decided to put together. I think it's about 30 resources. It includes 11 different police corps. And so, investigations, et cetera, they decided to hit more the people who transport the cars, and they seized, I think it was 53 cars and 26 containers. So it's a trend. I think you're going to see more of this coming. It all comes from, and essentially last October the mayor and I met with Ministre Bonnardel and Ministre Leblanc from the federal government and said, we need to look at this. Everyone agreed that it was a problem. Thus came the summit that we saw last week. At the summit, everybody was there, the car manufacturers, insurance companies, all the police corps from across Canada, to see what we could do. It's a complex problem and not something that's solved easily. So everyone decided to work on what they could work on in their own jurisdictions, including, car manufacturers that need to, at the source, make sure that the cars are harder to steal. The Port Authority in Montreal needs to be more vigilant, or I would say work, make sure that we can have access to the cars once they're found on the port. That's a complex issue. Here at the SPVM, we decided they're going to be increasing we have an investigation unit for all crimes. We're doubling that in Montreal. So we'll be up to 40 investigators. That will also include investigating car theft, but amongst other things.
So let me just ask you.
That's an important increase. So essentially, everyone is working hard. Everyone's doing what they could in their own jurisdictions, and it's a serious problem. One of the issues that we're having is that young kids are getting into it, from 12 to 24 years old. They represent about 50% of the people that were caught stealing cars in Montreal. It's becoming more violent. It's very lucrative for them. So, it's a serious problem that we need to address, and we're doing it.
So let me tell you something. When we opened up our phone lines on this last week, we had a caller who witnessed police officers getting hit by car thieves. That happened, I think it was 2 Mondays ago. Yeah. So, the violent aspect of this not lost on me. But one other thing that came out when I opened up our phone lines, I asked our listeners, I got call after call from someone to say, I called the police. And they say, no, sorry, it's at the port. If you have your air tag, you got to call the Port of Montreal. They call the Port of Montreal, like, sorry, you got to call the Montreal police.
Yeah.
Has that been fixed? The back and forth, like Kafkaesque type of thing where a person knows where their car is, it's just been stolen, and they can't get help because everyone's just passing the buck.
Well, that's the issue that we discussed. Once you find the car in the port, try and get it out. You have to get a mandate, it's a complex issue. So, everyone agreed to work on making it easier. I can't say that it's fixed overnight, but the goal is that if you find a car at the port, it'll be easier to recuperate from our police forces, from the SQ. The port recognizes that too, but, there's all kinds of laws that you have to adhere by. So the Minister of Justice agreed that it needs to be fixed. So we're working on it hard, and it'll be improved.
All right. I want to talk about the plastics ban for a second, because I saw Valérie Plante, the big boss, the mayor of Montreal, celebrating this week 1 year of the latest edition of the plastics ban. And she was calling it a success, and I'm just not so sure. There's a story in the Los Angeles Times this week. They've done it for 10 years, and plastic waste has increased because there's all types of things that happen when you ban one type of plastic. And I've talked to the restaurant owners that are like, Elias, my cost for takeout containers went from 40 cents to $1.20. Guess who has to pay for that, right? And there's all these consequences to plastic bans, single-use plastic bans, that nobody likes to think about. Spoke to someone else who was in the States, and they came back and said, Elias, I was so happy to be able to see my drink again, right? And they were talking about their beverages that they used to be, their cold beverages they used to be able to see. They can't see them anymore because the city of Montreal has decided what beverages you're allowed to see inside the container. A year later, are you as convinced as the mayor that this was the right decision?
Well, my file is public security.
Yeah, but you know we were talking
Right,
like
but I know
you're aware and you're a representative and you vote on these
No, I
things, so
agree,
you can't pass that buck.
I'm not passing the buck. Well, like anything you do, it's anything that you put in place. You start from an idea, you start from the concept that you hope that it has an impact on what you're aiming. In this case, the environment and single-use ware. It's a common knowledge that the landfills are filling up, that plastic's not the best thing. It's getting in our waterways. So you say, well, as a city, we have the jurisdiction, we have the duty to look at it. So it was looked at, it was studied, put in place. After a year, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the consequences are. As you mean, if there's negative impacts on different industries, et cetera, things could be looked at, reevaluated. Nothing's perfect, and it's a small step. We recognize that it's not going to end environmental disasters, environmental climate change, but it's one step that the city can take amongst all kinds of other steps. And if adjustments needs to be made, well, I think it's our duty to look at what can be changed, how can it be improved for the stated goal at the beginning. It's always
But how?
I think we all have the same goal at the beginning to make things better for the environment.
Sure, you want to make things better, but I just want to know in your mindset, how far should a government go to make decisions for people? Make the decisions of people and of businesses, right? I bring it back to public sack as well. It was government that decided no more public sacks, and grocery stores. It was the most cost-effective way for grocery stores to reach people. And now that's gone, and then we complain, geez, I wonder why groceries are up, and you look at the inflation numbers, they're actually up higher in Quebec than other places. And like everything has a cost, we never look at the other consequences, right? You get rid of public sack, it now costs more for grocery stores to advertise to Montrealers, they need to pay for that. But the real question is, in your mindset, how much of our daily decisions should be made by government as opposed to the people that have to live their own lives?
Well, it's a big question. Municipally, as a council, for example, municipally, we're faced with issues that we need to find solutions to, and citizens ask that. For example, we have landfill sites that are filling up. We know that they're going to be filled in a certain amount of years, and we have the duty to find a place to put our garbage. Well, necessarily, it's something that we have to tackle. So you look at that issue and you try and find solutions. Some of them are perfect, some work well. You adjust. So with each problem that we're faced municipally, we look at things that could improve it. Our landfills are filling up, so what do? Well, we got to put less things in our landfill. How do you do that? Well, perhaps single-use plastic that we find a lot in our landfills. So, I agree that we're not going to control everything. Then that's not the goal. The goal is to find solutions to problems that citizens bring to us. Garbage collection. You name it. The amount of salt we put on roads, the environmental aspect. People want clear sidewalks, but they ask us not to put too much salt. So it's always an issue of finding the solutions to the problems that people present to us, and how do we go about it? Some of our solutions aren't perfect, some don't work, some work better than others. So, but I think it's our duty to look at things that we can do in our jurisdictions and adjust when it doesn't work.
I got 1 minute to wrap up with you here, and I'll go back to your wheelhouse, body cams for SPVM officers. Why hasn't it happened yet?
Essentially, right now, the issue of body cams is in the jurisdiction of the Minister of Justice. The issue right now is that, all the footage that you would get from a body cam, it's not just in Montreal, it's across Quebec, needs to be applicable in the justice system. Currently, it is not. They don't have the capacity to receive the video. They don't have the procedures to put it into the cases. So the Minister of Justice right now, it's in their hands, and they're looking at harmonizing the procedures, making sure that the proof can be put forth in the court, and all that. And then they work with the Minister of Public Safety to see what kind of equipment does a province need, and it needs to be pretty much the same in all police corps across the province. essentially, like Alberta, it's provincially mandated. In Alberta, the provincial government mandated that all police courts were going to have body cams with the same type. The Minister of Justice can get the proof, the storage, the privacy issues. So, right now it's in the hands of the Minister of Justice, and we're working with them. I've met with Minister Bonardel. So we're on the file. We're making it move forward.
Alain Vaillancourt is head of public security on Montreal's executive committee. Thanks so much, Alain.
Thank you very much.